Let's look at the ultimate fantasy of unchecked power. To be a Roman emperor meant having no limits and absolutely no consequences. You had unlimited wealth, the authority to execute anyone on a whim, and every conceivable vice directly within reach. Marcus Aurelius occupied that exact position. Yet, despite being entirely unbound by law or custom, he rejected the hedonism expected of his office. He chose instead to live a life of strict restraint and virtue. He didn't get to practice this restraint in a peaceful palace. His reign coincided with one of the most brutal stretches in Roman history. He spent his years fighting endless wars against Germanic tribes, fending off military coups, and watching a plague wipe out millions of his citizens. The most powerful man on earth, theoretically capable of commanding the globe, spent his life trapped in a chaotic, hostile reality completely outside his command. To survive this, Marcus relied on a core mechanism from Stoic philosophy. He strictly divided the world into two categories: what was his and what wasn't. Look at this diagram. This massive outer ring represents everything you do not control. It contains other people's opinions, the weather, diseases, a crumbling economy, or a war on your borders. People burn massive amounts of energy fighting these things, but none of it actually belongs to you. But inside that chaos is a tiny inner ring. These are your own choices, your own effort, and how you react to the circumstances around you. That is the only real territory you truly command. True power, then, isn't found by trying to force that chaotic outer circle to behave. It comes from an obsessive mastery over the tiny inner circle of yourself. Marcus applied this logic directly to his immense wealth. As emperor, he possessed limitless physical riches, but he trained himself to view it all as irrelevant background noise. Possessions couldn't make him a better person, and losing them couldn't diminish his character. He applied that same mental detachment to staggering personal tragedies. Throughout his reign, he watched his co-emperor die and lost 7 of his own children before they reached adulthood. To endure this, he leaned on the Stoic concept of nature. Nature is an unstoppable order. Trees must eventually drop their leaves. Seasons always change. And human beings are designed, ultimately, to die. Fighting those facts, or living in constant dread of them, is a complete waste of energy. A Stoic accepts that loss and death are simply non-negotiable terms of being alive. Moving another layer inward, Marcus had to apply this same strict acceptance to the people closest to him. He was constantly surrounded by incompetence, greed, and betrayal among his own ranks. He reminded himself that difficult or wicked people are baked into the design of the universe. Expecting a world without them is exactly like asking a vine to grow without thorns. Dealing with these people didn't mean rolling over and being passive. It required massive discipline to stay fair and grounded, choosing to act with integrity instead of caving into anger or revenge. We only know he thought this way because of a document called Meditations. It was never meant to be published. It is the private, unpolished diary of an exhausted man sitting in a military tent, desperately trying to keep himself sane. Those late-night entries reveal his final conclusion. A human being's highest duty is simply to fulfill their own virtuous potential, regardless of how hostile or broken the surrounding world happens to be. History provides a brutal test of this entire philosophy. After decades of modeling self-mastery, Marcus had to select an heir to lead the Roman Empire. For generations, emperors had picked the most capable leaders available. Marcus broke that pattern and handed the empire to his own biological son, Commodus. Commodus turned out to be a reckless, self-obsessed tyrant. He immediately abandoned his father's grueling campaigns on the frontier, rushed back to Rome for the luxuries, and triggered the long decline of the Roman Empire. The philosopher-emperor who spent his life mastering his own impulses raised a son who mastered nothing. His greatest real-world legacy became the walking opposite of everything he stood for. You could look at that and see a massive failure, but in reality, it is the ultimate brutal proof of his central thesis. Look back at our diagram. Saving an empire, a legacy, or your child's success are external metrics. They exist in the outer ring, never fully in his control. Happiness and true power are strictly internal states, depending entirely on how you react to catastrophic disappointments. You don't need a global empire or a deadly plague to use this framework. You just need to look at your own life, honestly identify what is genuinely yours, and let go of all the rest.